Greetings from the Arcturians and Arcturian 144 here. Hitler's spirit has been making himself known to me, and he has a message for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and also for the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Here's what Hitler is saying to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu: stop the genocide of the Palestinians. Now, I'm looking up the definition of genocide, and this is what I get. From Google here, it says genocide is the deliberate and systematic destruction of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, in whole or in part. It's a crime under international law, defined by acts intended to eliminate such a group. The definition includes killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm, deliberately inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about physical destruction, imposing measures to prevent births, or forcibly transferring children. Here's a more detailed explanation. Intent is crucial. The key element is the intent to destroy the group. Well, we know that Netanyahu has that intent against the Palestinians. Then it says acts of violence against a group, even on a large scale, are not automatically considered genocide unless there's evidence of this specific intent. As I say, everybody in the world, in the whole damn world, knows how Benjamin Netanyahu feels about Palestinians, and his actions against the Palestinians is proof of his intent, his evil intent against destroying Palestinians. Right, then it says targeted groups. Genocide is targeted against a group based on national, ethnic, racial, or religious identity, the Palestinians. Examples of acts. The definition includes various acts such as killing, causing harm, imposing destructive living conditions. Yeah, because what is Netanyahu doing with all this trying to starve Palestinians to death? Imposing destructive living conditions on the Palestinians. Preventing births and forcibly transferring children of the targeted group. Well, children who are lining up for Palestinian children who are lining up for aid, for food, are being killed. So, isn't that what this is? Or well, it's kind of what this is too. International law. The crime of genocide is defined in the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Then it says beyond legal definitions. While the legal definition is important, scholars and policymakers may also use the term in broader ways, sometimes referring to large-scale violence against civilians or simply describing extreme evil. Yeah, well, that's what it is as well. So, and we all know, the world knows that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is a war criminal, and an arrest warrant has been issued for him by the International Criminal Court. And the same goes for the Russian President Putin as well. So why is someone like Hitler coming out with this message? Because the world knows what Hitler did to the Jews when Hitler was alive, going back to the time period of Nazi Germany. Oh, and the Second World War? Was it the Second World War? And isn't that interesting that he is coming through, or his spirit is coming through with this message, while the threat of World War III is looming over all of our heads, and a nuclear war on top of it. But the threat of World War III. Ah, and Hitler is also coming through with this message here because Hitler caused World War II. And I'm looking it up on Google here again, and it says, yes, Adolf Hitler's actions were a major contributing factor to the start of World War II. His aggressive foreign policy, oh my God, aggressive foreign policy, and that reminds me of who? The US President, President Trump, and his aggressive foreign policy with all these tariffs and his aggressive trade war with the world too. So wow, right. So now, President Trump is coming into the picture too. Anyway, and then it says, particularly the invasion of Poland in 1939 directly triggered the conflict, and the rise of militarism in other nations also played a role. Anyway, Hitler's decision to invade Poland is widely considered the event that ignited World War II. That ignited the war. I'm guessing they're referring to that ignited World War II. So I see. That's why Hitler's spirit is coming through with this message for Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin right now. Because he's in hell. Hitler is in hell because of what he did and the wrongs he did while he was alive here on earth, and the fact that he caused World War II. So Hitler is in hell because of that. His spirit is in hell because of that. But his spirit is being brought here to me by the Arcturians, my star family, and by God and my spirit team, or my spirit protection team, my spirit team as well, because he has a word of advice for Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin, because he knows they are both watching me. So that's why Hitler is coming through here with this message for them. Okay, I'm channeling this message right now. So Hitler is saying to both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin, stop doing what you're doing right now, or you will both end up in hell like me. But you see, I'm just sitting here and thinking, this is not gonna work. I mean, this is not the first message I'm doing for Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin here on my channel. I've done messages for both of them before, and it all keeps falling on deaf ears. So what's this message from Hitler gonna do? This is gonna fall on deaf ears as well. That's what I'm thinking. But I guess even then, Hitler still wanted to come through with this message. Still. But I'm just thinking, do they care about going to hell? Do they? Does Prime Minister Netanyahu care about going to hell? Does President Putin care about going to hell? Do they? Do they even care? No, but we still have to give out this message. We still have to deliver this message as a warning to them, to both of them. Because I'm just thinking, oh, well, here goes another message, and now this message from Hitler is also gonna fall on deaf ears. So, is there any point in doing these messages and these warning messages for these men in power who are abusing their power to the extreme like this? And they are war criminals. And International Criminal Court, or ICC, has issued arrest warrants for both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin. Here on Google it says on 21st of November 2024. This is for Prime Minister Netanyahu. On 21st of November 2024, following an investigation of war crimes and crimes against humanity, the International Criminal Court, or ICC, issued arrest warrants for two senior Israeli officials. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and Yoav Gallant, the former Minister of Defense of Israel. So, and of course, the same goes for President Putin as well. So, war crimes, crimes against humanity, etc. But Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin, they're going to keep the killing and the destruction going because what? They both don't want to end up in jail. They don't want to face their karma. They don't want to face their judgment because we are going through Judgment Day, as I keep saying. And they don't want to go through their karma. They don't want to go through their judgment because they don't want to end up in jail. So what? They're just going to keep killing innocent human beings. They're just going to keep being mass murderers, keep being war criminals, keep doing all these crimes against humanity. And they're going to keep causing destruction even to this planet because all these exploding bombs, all right, they're exploding on humans, but they're also exploding on the ground of planet Earth as well. And do you think that planet Earth is just a dead object floating in space? And I think I did a message about planet Earth in a previous video. That was probably one of the messages I was doing for President Putin in the recent past. But that's the thing. So because these two don't want to end up in jail and they don't want to confess and atone for their sins against humanity even, so that means that more and more innocent human beings like Palestinians and Ukrainians have to just keep dying, keep getting killed, and more destruction with all these exploding bombs and drones and airstrikes is going to continue. And no one is able to stop these two and put an end to it all. Even now. Because the one who has any kind of power here on earth to put an end to it, meaning the US President, President Trump, is too busy playing friends with both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin. So who's going to bring these two down then? Because President Trump is not doing it and President Trump is not going to do it. President Trump is playing their game with them. As I said, I keep calling them the Three Musketeers. You know, I just wanted to look this up quickly because why do I keep getting the Three Musketeers for President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and President Putin? And okay, so I'm looking it up on Google. I mean, of course, I've heard about the Three Musketeers, but I'm just looking it up on Google now. It says the Three Musketeers primarily refers to the novel by Alexander Dumas, set in 17th century France, which follows the adventures of three close friends who are all musketeers. The term can also refer to the historical group of soldiers known as musketeers or to any trio of close friends. The motto, all for one and one for all, is strongly associated with the group from the novel, emphasizing their loyalty and unity. So, as I've been saying, President Trump is loyal to who? Not to the world. President Trump is loyal to only Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin. And that's where President Trump's loyalty lies. And, and in terms of unity, it's like these three are united against the world. And let's not forget that when it comes to President Putin, as I've already mentioned, that there's a secret there when it comes to President Putin and President Trump, that President Trump does not want coming out to the world. So President Trump is being blackmailed by President Putin because of that secret too. So, there's that angle to it as well when it comes to President Trump and President Putin. So, because President Trump does not want his secret coming out when it comes to President Trump and President Putin, and President Trump is loyal to President Putin and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and these three are united against the world, which means the world is going to have to keep suffering because of these three men in power. Only three men in power, and they're making the whole world suffer. And all the other world leaders don't have the balls to bring these three down. Right? No. Instead, some of them actually think that flattering President Trump and buttering him up is the right strategy, is the right way to go when it comes to President Trump. And I'm getting the NATO chief, Mark Rutte, in my head right now with that. Oh, of course, that's what he did when it comes to that. Was it a NATO summit that happened recently? I think so. Where he flattered President Trump. But of course, it was probably a strategy. But, and then President Trump ended up sharing his private email or his private message, NATO chief's private message to President Trump, whether it was an email or some sort of a direct message to President Trump. And then President Trump ended up sharing that message to the world, when that was supposed to be a private message or a private conversation between President Trump and NATO chief Mark Rutte. But President Trump exposed it to the whole world. I wonder how the NATO chief Mark Rutte felt about that. Oh well, that's what you get with President Trump. You sure you want to keep buttering him up? You sure you want to keep flattering him? But for what? What did you get out of it? What? What did you get out of it? And now I'm getting the UK Prime Minister Starmer as well, because he's been buttering up President Trump and he's been flattering President Trump, and it's like a strategy going on here. But the only problem is this strategy is not really working now, is it? It's not. It's not working. It's actually doing more harm than good. And you world leaders like Prime Minister Starmer, UK Prime Minister Starmer, and NATO Chief Mark Rutte, you need to realize that this strategy of yours of, oh, let's butter up President Trump, or let's flatter President Trump because, oh, he likes flattery and, it'll work out in our favor. Oh, well, did it? Has it? Not really. No, it hasn't. It's not working. So what's your next strategy then? Or do you even have one? Do you have a plan B? Do you have a plan C? Do you have a plan Z? Or do you have a plan Z? I doubt it. You can't handle President Trump like that. That's the wrong approach to take with a bully, because you're enabling him. You do not enable a bully. Rather, you stand up to a bully. Do you hear me? So that's the wrong approach, and that's the wrong strategy. Because you're enabling President Trump instead of taking him down and bringing him down a notch. You're enabling a bully instead of standing up to a bully. And that's why it's not working. Your strategy, your little strategy, is not working with President Trump, because he will never respect you like that. He will never have any respect for you. And that's the harsh truth that no one else will tell you, world leaders, other than someone like me. And unfortunately, you world leaders are watching me, and so you have to hear it from me. You have to hear it from a woman. I'm sure that's another something that you are uncomfortable with, because you're all men. So, how dare I, a woman, tell you anything? Right? Ego. Your ego kicks in. Because how dare a woman tell you anything, or how dare a woman who is a nobody to you dares tell you anything? Or dares to tell you that, oh, you're wrong, or your strategy is wrong, and that's why it's not really working. That's why you're all still stuck when it comes to President Trump, and when it comes to the war situation with Israel and Palestine and what's going on there. It's like now Prime Minister Netanyahu is starving Palestinians and killing Palestinian children, lining up for aid for food in Gaza. And, women and men too. But it's all on the news. The world is watching what Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing with his, new war tactic of, oh, let's starve the Palestinians and let's, eliminate them through starvation too now. Genocide. That's what it's called. That's what Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing to the Palestinians with this whole starvation thing now, too. And people can't even, and not just people, men, women, even children, they can't even line up to get food in Gaza without getting killed. They're not even safe lining up to get some food because they're starving. It's like their life is at risk. Even when they're just trying to get some food because they're starving. And they're getting killed while trying to get some food. This is what Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing. And no one dares stop this man. President Trump is too concerned about, drop the charges against Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I'm sure that he would say the same about President Putin too. Oh, drop the charges, against President Putin too. And then what? Then what? Will they stop the war? What's the guarantee that they will stop the wars then? What's the guarantee? It's being played backwards. I mean, it should be more like, drop the wars. Prime Minister Netanyahu must drop the war against the Palestinians and must stop starving the Palestinians to death, men, women, and children, and babies. And President Putin must stop the war and must drop the war against Ukraine and the Ukrainians and stop killing innocent Ukrainians. And maybe then we can consider dropping the charges against them. How about that? How about we play it from this angle? Who could have thought of that? Me, a woman. And all of you world leaders, all of you men, you're useless. You have all this power because you're sitting in power positions like presidents and prime ministers. And you still cannot do shit. Why are you so powerless and helpless and useless? What is the point of you sitting in these power positions then and be powerful and have these powers when you are not even doing what you're supposed to do with it? You're not, what do you say? The right use of power. Because what's Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Trump, President Putin are doing? They are abusing their power. But the other world leaders, they don't even know how to implement the right use of power when it comes to them. Like, why are they not using the power they have in the right way? Or using the power they have to stop these three men in power, to bring them down in whatever way it's possible. Well, I've already given a suggestion about bringing the Galactics in, because who's gonna fight against the Galactics? Even President Trump, being the most powerful man in the world right now because he's the president of the United States, even he could not, and even America could not, with all its advanced technology and B-2 stealth bombers and stealth technology and whatever else they've got, they still could not fight the Galactics and the far advanced galactic technology. So, but you men in power are still just sitting there, and you're going from one country to another, and you're doing all these meetings, and you're drinking wine, you're eating fine food, while the Palestinians in Gaza are starving to death, and the Ukrainians are getting killed. But you men in power, the ones other than President Trump, President Putin, and Prime Minister Netanyahu, you're just going from country to country, from one country to another country, and you're just doing meetings, and you're doing a lot of talking, and that's all you're doing. You're wasting time, and you're letting all these innocent people keep getting killed day in, day out, night in, night out, and you're letting all these Palestinians starve to death and getting killed, these Palestinian children getting killed even when they're lining up to get some aid, some food in Gaza, and getting killed. And what are you world leaders doing? Even President Zelensky, traveling from one country to another, doing meetings, talking shit, empty talk, empty promises, empty reassurances, while all these innocent human beings in Palestine and in Ukraine just keep getting killed day in, day out, night in, night out, and the Palestinians are also being starved to death and being killed, Palestinian children being killed while lining up to get some food because they're starving, and they're getting killed there too. And what are you world leaders doing? You're going from country to country. You're doing meetings. You're just talking. Just a lot of talking. Talk, empty talk. No action. No action that actually counts, that would actually stop these wars and put an end to them. Why are you sitting in these power positions then, when you cannot do anything of substance? Why are you even prime ministers and presidents then? You're useless. Why don't you all just resign from your power positions and go sit down somewhere, or just go sit down at home? You know what, that's enough. I don't know why I keep wasting my words and my energy on men like you. Even you men in power, who seem to have no power. It's like even when you have power, you can't seem to do shit. So then what's the point of that power when you can't even use it in the right way, the right use of power? But it's like you can't even use your power. Why? What's going on there? Oh, because you're all chickens? Cowards? That's what's really going on there. All of you men in power, you have no backbone. All of you need to grow a backbone to go against monsters like President Putin and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and of course President Trump seems to have the same ambitions and is having the same kind of mindset of being a dictator and forcing his will on everyone else and onto the world even. And all of you other world leaders just sitting there, letting them do it to you and everyone else in the world. Even if some of the world leaders are pushing back on, Trump's trade war with tariffs, still, most of you are just enabling the bully instead of standing up to him. So who is going to lose? You know what? That's enough. As I said, I'm wasting my words and my energy here. I don't even know why I keep doing these messages. Because someone just keeps coming through from the spirit. Someone like Hitler or even Prophet Moses. I've even done a couple of messages from Prophet Moses for Prime Minister Netanyahu. I even did a message telling him who he is the reincarnation of and how that lifetime ended for him. How that past life ended for him, which is actually mentioned in the Bible. The Egyptian Pharaoh and Prophet Moses, and how the Egyptian Pharaoh ended up. But no, it's all been falling on deaf ears. Enough said. Over and out.